to face. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, one people. We are roll up to roll out. Cause no man's alone. Do what's right. Cause I love you. Brother, my sister. And we're in this together. My sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
I will take the vaccine because building defenses against COVID-19 is a team effort, and we are all a key part of that defense.
I definitely will be taking the vaccine when it's my turn.
I will be taking the vaccine as it is an important tool in the fight against the pandemic.
It is important for me to vaccinate to ensure that if I do become infected with the disease, it can prevent hospitalization. In addition, it also helps with herd immunity.
I will take the vaccine to protect myself, my loved ones, my clients, my co-workers, my community.
St. Kitts and Nevis, why do we need to vaccinate? Kenisha? So we can jab COVID-19 away.
Just witnessed the handing over of a generous donation of 20,000 doses of the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine.
It was a kind donation, as India understands that it is important for us to be able to ensure that the entire world is free of COVID-19, and the only way we can do that is through vaccination.
We welcome these additional doses because it would help us to provide a significant coverage, a greater percentage of our population in terms of vaccination against this virus.
And just to note that St. Kitts and Nevis is also paying forward, and we are going to assist the government and people of Grenada by donating 2,000 of those 20,000 to the people of Grenada. And so once again, we just want to thank the government of India, and remember, don't wait, vaccinate.
tonight we are in the Boyd's community at the Brantywell Primary School, where we took the education to the community. We allowed the persons within the community to be able to ask questions about the AstraZeneca Oxford COVID-19 vaccine. We were privileged enough to have Dr. Wilkerson here with us tonight, sharing the information and answering the questions. We had quite a number of questions from the persons who were here, and fortunately for us, we were able to get quite a number of persons who were able to sign up as well and are willing now to take the vaccine because they were able to have this session. This is the first in a number of community level sessions that we are going to have with persons, because we know it's important for persons to be able to ask the questions and be able to debunk some of the myths and the untruths that are out there about the COVID-19 vaccines. And so we are happy that we were able to be here at the Brantywell Primary School in Boyds. Next Wednesday we're going to be in two communities actually. We're going to be in the St. Johnson Community Center, but we're also going to have another team that's going to be at the McKnight Community Center doing the same thing, sharing the information and giving persons as much feedback as we can about the AstraZeneca COVID-19, because it's important for us to make sure that we reach that 70% herd immunity necessary for us to be able to get our lives back to as normal as possible. And so we're encouraging everyone to roll up, to roll out. Don't wait, vaccinate.
You know, it's me, Mr. HE, and I'm here with one message: roll up to roll out. We all know how difficult things have been during this COVID-19 pandemic. While we continue to wash our hands, wear face masks, and practice social distancing, how about we take it one step further and get vaccinated? Call the nearest health center to find out if you are eligible to be vaccinated, or you can contact the Ministry of Health at any one of these numbers down below. Don't be discouraged by the negativity. We all have a role to play in protecting this federation. So, St. Kitts and Nevis, let's roll up to roll out.
Tonight we had another successful town hall meeting in which we engaged the community regarding the vaccination rollout in St. Kitts and Nevis. As of this afternoon, we had just under 6,000 persons who have been vaccinated. That brings us close to 18% of our target population, which we need to have vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. Tonight's session was to bring the information to the people in a manner in which they have the opportunity to share their concerns, to express their fears, and to have them answered by the professional and the experts in the health ministry. I want to commend our Medical Chief of Staff, Dr. Cameron Wilkinson, our Permanent Secretary in Health, Dr. Dolores Stapleton Harris, and of course the District Medical Doctor, Dr. Bernice Nisbet, for participating in this very rich experience for the people of the community of St. Paul's and the adjoining areas. I think this has been highly successful. We had a sense of joy. We at the end of the question and answer period, a number of persons moved forward to have their vaccination. That tells me that it was very persuasive, it was impactful, and it has helped. And I know these persons are going to be ambassadors. They're going to be out there with their own experience, sharing with others, and as a consequence, we're going to have more persons participating in the program.
Yeah. face.
Mr. Osmond Petty in the National Security, as well as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Elrita Simpson Brown. We have with us as well Commissioner of Police Hilroy Brandy, as well as the head of the St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force, Lieutenant Colonel J. Anthony Comrie, and his deputy, Walter Bass. We also have the Chief Executive Officer of the St. Christopher and Nevis Air and Seaport Authority, Mr. Don James, Acting Fire Chief, Garfield Hodge, Chief Medical Officer in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Hazel Laws, Chief Executive Officer at the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, Raquel Brown, Director of Statistics, Mr. Carlton Phipps, as well as we have, especially among us today, clinical psychologist out of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Sharon Ann Gopal McNichol. I would like to take this opportunity to thank members of the media who are here with us, as well as those providing live coverage of this afternoon's event. This press conference is being carried live on several local radio stations, namely Freedom FM, Sugar City FM, Vaughan Radio, Win FM, ZIZ Radio and Television, as well as various social media platforms, including the Facebook pages and YouTube channels of ZIZ and the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, also known as SKNIS. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris uses this forum to update the nation on matters of national importance and to engage the representatives of the Fourth Estate, that is, the members of the press who are here to ask him questions directly. Just one short announcement before we proceed. There will be no Leadership Matters this evening. Leadership Matters is hosted by the Prime Minister every Tuesday. However, a rebroadcast of this press conference will take its place. We will now have a presentation by the Prime Minister, following which members of the press will be allowed to ask questions. We usually ask that you ask a question along with a related or follow-up question, and then we'll take it round-robin style. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but today we will try our best to make it as interactive and engaging as possible and see if we can get in as many questions as possible. So without further ado, I would like to present the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me acknowledge the presence of the Cabinet colleague, Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, our Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, senior functionaries of the government, invitees, fellow citizens and residents. It is a privilege to report to you via this press conference. Today I want to update you on our plan to keep our people safe from COVID-19 and to get our country and our economy back on track to a stronger and safer future. There are several matters of national interest, but I will start with the most significant one, that is our continued fight to contain and defeat COVID-19. This is, of course, achievable should we realize herd immunity. Herd immunity is critical to our plans for expediting economic recovery here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Our future will be stronger and safer when we reach this significant milestone. For this reason, on February 22nd, we commence our vaccination rollout with the declared objective of achieving herd immunity. That is at least 70% of our population inoculated. Our target population is that group of citizens and residents 18 years and over. 4 weeks after we have inoculated 7,803 persons, or just about 24% of the target population. I'm advised that in Europe, the percentage of the population inoculated so far is about 11%, and in the USA, after 4 months of their vaccination rollout, only 12% of its population is vaccinated thus far. St. Kitts and Nevis is doing comparatively well with its vaccination rollout, given the reality of vaccine hesitancy, cynicism, and misinformation. I must urge even more persons to get vaccinated. Do this in order to protect yourself from the worst effects of COVID-19. Do it for your loved ones, and do it, please, for love of this beautiful country. Do it so that we can put thousands of workers back to work again in tourism and hospitality, and do it so that we can all be safe. There is now a global shortage of vaccines. Production has not kept pace with expectation. Additionally, there has been an unfortunate rise in vaccine nationalism, where rich countries are hoarding vaccines. Supply chains have become unreliable. Only last Friday, at the meeting of the OECS Authority, and again this morning at a virtual meeting of the Accelerator Facilitation Council, I raised this matter in my capacity as CARICOM Lead Head on Health, HIV and Human Resources, with the illustrious Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, and other Council members at the Facilitation Council meeting today. I urge increased advocacy and action to ensure that small island developing states like St. Kitts and Nevis and other member states of the OECS and the wider CARICOM concentric circle are not disadvantaged. It was reported that 76% of all vaccines have been secured by the 10 richest countries. I propose that vaccines should be distributed to those countries most in need and on account of vulnerability. At the meeting of the OECS heads, Dr. Tedros agreed to undertake specific outreach to secure more vaccines for our vulnerable region. Today, he advised me that he had made the necessary inquiries on behalf of the region, and he is awaiting some firm word from those interventions. At present, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have more than half of the vaccines received to date. We have received 22,000 doses of vaccines, of which 2,000 doses were made available to the government and people of Grenada. At this time, we have enough to give a second dose to all those who have received their first jab. The truth is, while the vaccine is available, all of us must take active steps to be inoculated. My message to those who are waiting is, do not wait. Seize the moment and vaccinate now while vaccine is available. I want to commend the Ministry of Health for making all 11 health centers on St. Kitts available for persons to access the vaccine. Additionally, every Saturday, I repeat, every Saturday, the Newtown and Irishtown, St. Paul's and Tabernacle health centers will be opened from 9 a.m. to 12 noon to accommodate those persons who could not make it during the 1 to 5 p.m. slot in the work week, Monday to Friday. As it is now, all 11 health centers on St. Kitts and 6 health centers on Nevis provide vaccines during the period 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. For many persons, that time slot is not convenient. For the last 3 weeks thereof, we have made available the vaccines at the health center in Newtown and in Bastia. That is the Irishtown facility. From this Saturday, we have added some other health centers, St. Paul's and Tabernacle, to the 2 in the city of Bastia. I'm advised that in Nevis, the Gingerland Health Center and the Charlestown Health Center will be open on some Saturdays, so you have to pay attention to which days. In Nevis, in St. Kitts going forward, every Saturday between 9 and 12, this service will be available. I turn now to the matter of the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine. AstraZeneca's vaccine is very safe. About 500 doses of this vaccine were made available to the region. Yesterday, data was released from a long-awaited USA-based safety study of the AstraZeneca vaccine. The study confirmed that there is no evidence of increased risk of thromboembolic or blood clotting events or rare blood clots associated with the AstraZeneca vaccine. This is helpful news. Additionally, the European Medicine Agency and the World Health Organization both have reported that the AstraZeneca vaccine is very safe and has been effective so far. Our own health experts have assured us that the vaccine is very safe. The vaccine that we are using has passed multi-layered evaluation by expert panels before it was granted emergency use approval by the prestigious World Health Organization. Our early actions helped contain transmission of the virus and kept the people of St. Kitts and Nevis safe. We will continue to explore all avenues to secure additional vaccines through the COVAX facility and through bilateral and multilateral mechanisms. Our Ministry of Health continues to provide guidance on the procurement of vaccines. Turning now to the economy. The economy here and everywhere slowed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, 255 million equivalent full-time jobs were lost worldwide as a result of COVID-19, according to the International Labour Organization. Vaccines are now critical to get the global economy back to full performance and productivity. Everyone must play a part to get our economy back to work. In my view, the first positive action is to get vaccinated. The business community and our churches will continue to encourage more of their employees and members to get vaccinated, thereby contributing to the restoration of normalcy in our society. I am pleased that we are seeing some good signs of recovery. More needs to happen, of course, but we are grateful for these positive developments, to which I shall now turn. We have successfully facilitated the return of 649 Ross University students to St. Kitts and a number of students from UMHS to our shores, with resultant increases in business for landlords, operators of rental cars, and restaurants. Education tourism is critical to the restoration of our stayover and long-stay tourism. We have been engaging with other universities to see how, working together, we may be able to facilitate the return of all their students to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Another positive development has been the movie making as a new niche in tourism. Presently, 2 movies are being filmed in St. Kitts and Nevis, Below Deck at Park Hyatt St. Kitts, and One Year Off for Nevis. This is a new and exciting opportunity that came our way as a result of our track record at managing COVID-19. When we engaged Mr. Martinez, the principal of MSR Productions, he indicated that he had several choices to film his movies. Barbados recommended to him the Dominican Republic. He said what made up his mind about St. Kitts was our performance, excellent performance in management of the COVID-19. So it's a good thing that from the very onset, we pursued the highest standards to keep our people safe. When several countries were debating, should they adopt the gold standard in terms of quarantine? Should it be no weeks? Should it be 7 days, 5 days? We were very clear upfront. Our first priority was to keep our people safe, and we opted for the 14-day quarantine period. We have not changed it. Those who had taken a shorter period of time have had to, as a result of the upsurge in COVID-19 cases in their country, to extend their own quarantine period. We look then at the medium and long term. Some persons see this thing as a short-term response. I want to commend the good advice, the excellent advice that we've had to date from our health planners. And though it has not always been easy, we have been determined that life first and everything else thereafter. The principal of MSR Productions has promised to deliver 6 movies this year. We are hopeful that the success of these 7 movies, Below Deck and the 6 others, augurs well for the future development of the film and creative industry here in St. Kitts. This will bring much visibility to and interest in St. Kitts and Nevis as the best place to visit, to do business, and to live. We have, in my view, the beginning of a viable film and creative arts industry, and we shall work together with other stakeholders to harness it for the benefit of our young people who will secure jobs, incomes, play roles as actors and actresses, and movie stars. We appreciate the confidence in our economy by those who are in the hotel sector. several hotel properties are at advanced stages of completion. Trinity Sunset Shores, Seaview Hotel, and Hillsborough Suites Hotel should be completed during the course of the year, with opportunities for permanent jobs, real incomes, and increase in hotel room stock to more competitive levels. The construction sector is a key driver of economic growth, and in this regard we note several private sector projects such as the TDC Joas Residential Middle Income Project and the Luxury Villa Development Project at Royal St. Kitts Hotel, all of which have already started. These, of course, will be buttressed by ongoing government projects such as the Island Resurfacing Project and the Old Road Rehabilitation Project. We are expecting during the course of the year to add 2 other major capital projects in the new correctional facility at Estridge Estate and, of course, the Barstow High School in East Barstow. To our first-time homeowners, my government continues to support our people who are constructing their first home through the First-Time Homeowners Mortgage Program. Under this program, qualified applicants are granted a significant waiver of duty on construction materials for their home. For the year so far, 41 persons have benefited from duty-free concessions. Last year, 151 persons received duty-free and building materials totaling $26.2 million. We are doing all we can to help persons build their homes, increase their stake in our country, and create and improve the business climate. Speaking of the business climate, confidence is returning. The statistics reveal that 183 small and medium-sized enterprises have been approved so far, compared to 143 licenses issued in 2020, up 28% for the comparative period. To further boost support to small and medium-sized enterprises, my government will make available shortly an additional $5 million to the Development Bank to lend to businesses with viable plans. This was a commitment made in our budget for the financial year, paragraph 28 of the budget address, to be specific. I now want to present an update with respect to severance matter. Severance payments. This, of course, is a matter of concern for several hundreds of our people who have suffered largely as a consequence of the closure of the tourism industry as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The government remains concerned regarding the delays in the processing of claims. There were several explanations advanced at yesterday's cabinet by the Labour Commissioner for these delays. The unprecedented number of persons, 2,839 persons who submitted severance claims on account of COVID-19. Never before has that volume of applications been submitted in any year. The unprecedented volume of records to be processed, a maximum of 17 years employment records would have to be tracked and reviewed for those who are entitled to maximum compensation on account of the year's work. The failure of employers to pay in their contributions to the severance fund was a major matter creating delays. If no monies were paid into the fund by the employer, the traditional approach has been to hold off on the payment, since if nothing got in on your behalf, nothing should come out. And then, finally, there have been discrepancy in the data between what may have been put on the application form versus what the official records at Social Security and otherwise would reveal. I want to report that notwithstanding there has been a delay in the processing of a large number of claims, the federal government has to date already paid out $33.8 million in severance payments, $23.8 million. At yesterday's meeting of the Cabinet, it was decided to expedite the processing of claims by recruiting additional workers on a temporary basis. An additional work shift will also be implemented, and further support will be made available to the Labor Department. We are determined that notwithstanding the practice of not giving support to claims for which no payment had been made into the fund, the government, out of compassion, would honor all claims, even where the employer has not paid over his contribution to the severance fund. There are millions of dollars outstanding as a result of unpaid contributions to the severance fund by employers. The Social Security Board will commence legal action against delinquent employers. I want to encourage those delinquent employers to make payment plans with the Social Security and save themselves the embarrassment and expense of a court trial. We will also provide an advance payment to persons whose claims have not yet been processed to allow them to meet their most urgent needs. A further statement will be made on this initiative later. The Financial Secretary at this particular moment is working with the relevant parties, stakeholders, to do the necessary computation. But what the Cabinet has committed, that the government will intervene, provide some interim relief to allow persons to meet some of their most urgent needs while their claims are being processed. This, of course, will bring some helpful relief to many families who are awaiting their pensions. I want to turn to the matter of appointments, and in this regard to announce that Mr. Winston Hanley has been appointed as our counselor at the St. Kitts Nevis Embassy in Havana, Cuba. And secondly, Ms. Brenda Foreman has been granted approval to serve at the St. Kitts and Nevis's Honorary Council in Ontario, Canada. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs advised that this second appointment had the support of the Government of Canada. Ms. Foreman has her roots in Cayon. Indeed, her proud mother, Marge, is here, and I want to extend congratulations to her. The fourth meeting of our National Assembly for 2021 is slated for this Thursday, the 25th. Bills up for debate include the Gaming Control Bill 2021, the Companies Amendment Bill 2021, the Income Tax Amendment Bill 2021, and the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2021. Our National Assembly is functioning well again. The Parliament is meeting regularly to transact the people's business. Finally, as the government seeks ideas and work with critical stakeholders to ensure that the economy's recovery is expedited. We will meet shortly with the Chamber of Industry and Commerce to discuss where we are at and how our mutually reinforcing actions can spur greater economic activity. This meeting, of course, has been preceded with consultations with the farmers, the fishers, and with representatives of the bus operators. My government approaches these consultations from a philosophy and expectation that working together we can achieve more for our beloved country of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you very much, and I now open for representatives of the media to pose any question of concern.
Good day, I'm Lashan Dixon, St. Kitts and Nevis Observer. Two questions. A little over a year ago, the government announced a stimulus package for COVID-19 relief. I was just looking at an update, the status of that stimulus, and whether there will be any funds added to it this year, and also the financial state of the government's finances. Also, the CBI, the discounted rates for the CBI program, what was the response like for those rates given the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you very much. Is there a second intervention?
Good afternoon. Glenn Bart from SKN Newsline. My first two questions relate to, first, the COVAX facility. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis made a payment to the COVAX facility. Exactly what was the amount? What was it used for? Was it for purchasing vaccines, or was it to a contribution to the work of the COVAX facility? Then, of course, we are looking for 70% herd immunity. The contribution from India, the contribution from Dominica, and what is to be expected from the COVAX facility seems not to be able to reach the 70% herd immunity. So generally, how are we going to get the additional vaccines, and how much money are we expected to expend on that? Second question relates to the SCASPER. In the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, lots of cruise ships are not here. What is the financial state of SCASPER at the moment?
Thank you very much. We can take one more intervention, and then we'll have a response.
Good afternoon, Kevin Brown, WinFM. First question, when will cruise ships return? Have we reached out to the cruise industry to set a date? Secondly, when will tourists and nationals be allowed to return to SKN without quarantine? What will it take to accomplish that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will ask, when we get there, the Director of Tourism, who is here, to respond to the efforts that are being made to reach out to the cruise ship industry to ensure they can return as quickly as possible. I think the second question in relation to the quarantine, I will put that to the Chief Medical Officer. In terms of the stimulus package, $120 million were made available across various sectors to basically ease the pain and to get some sectors up and running again. What has been the result of this significant? It was the largest stimulus package to be announced by any government in the region. The results have been quite positive, and we are still doing the arithmetic. What I could say is to take, for example, the report that was given by the Director of Marine Resources at the consultation with the fisher folks. We would have recognized that in April, the first full month after we had our first 2 cases of COVID-19 and the consequential lockdown, there was an 83% reduction in the fisheries catch caught for that particular month. So we had an 83% reduction relative to the month before. For the period May to December, the Fisheries Department is reporting that they had over a 29% increase in the fisheries catch over the comparative period 2019 to 2020. The statistics I revealed at the last edition, I think it was, of Leadership Matters, where we had a significant increase, and the director attributed that increase to the substantial investment that we made to help the sector to recover. Indeed, one of the first sectors that we responded to in terms of the lockdown, easing the restriction, was the fisheries sector, where Mr. Brandy used his discretion to grant extended hours for the fishers to get back into the sea and to do what they can to contribute to food security. We did a similar concession with respect to those involved in farming, crop farming, livestock farming, etc. Overall, notwithstanding COVID-19 in 2020 and the hours that would have been lost as a result of the emergency powers that were exercised to lock down the country, overall, 2020 for the fisheries sector proved much better than it was in 2019. And the consequences of that, the result of that, was simply put that the stimulus had worked. What did we do? We provided significant support to every fisherman. Fishing wire, fishing lines, you name it, were made available to assist them to get their businesses back on track again. How successful were we for the millions that we had to invest in preserving our health system? The results are evident. St. Kitts and Nevis, among independent states, has the lowest infection count in the entire hemisphere. St. Kitts and Nevis is one of only 2 countries in the CARICOM community that would not have had 1 death as a result of COVID-19. That is what the stimulus package allowed us to do for the health sector. Fortify our health system, provide the diagnostic, provide the therapeutics, and of course, generally, to enhance healthcare delivery. We brought in a significant batch of Cuban health experts, placed them in Nevis and on St. Kitts to ensure that the kind of support we envisage would have become necessary could be readily available. So the stimulus package from those instances have been marvelous. And I count too as an important delivery of the stimulus package the $1,000 per month that we made available to our people who had become displaced. $1,000 per month. $75 a week in St. Vincent and the Grenadine. It was the largest support granted anywhere in the region. And the thousands of people will attest that had it not been for that particular component of the stimulus, life would have been far worse for them. The stimulus of the $1,000 per month allowed the ordinary people to be able to eke out a living, to keep their head above the waters, and to preserve their dignity. The stimulus package then, in my view, has been a godsend and has done what we had expected to do, help to halt the severity of the damage to the economy, but most importantly, to help our people at a time of great difficulty, unprecedented in the annals of our history, to help them to better organize their lives. What has been the impact on the country? Clearly, as a consequence of COVID-19, an important major sector, major economic driver literally collapsed. No business, no visitors of note, no air traffic of note, and that of course have had significant implications for the government revenue. Indeed, revenues for across some of the revenue collecting items, heads of the government, in some cases would have fallen by as much as perhaps 70%. So it has been significant in the impact. What saved us is that the government had been prudent in the management of the country for the last 5 years. And we had prepared, not for the pandemic because none of us expected it, but we prepared for the rainy day. And we set aside resources year after year when we were able to report that we had a surplus on all the fiscal accounts of importance to the international community. It was saying to the country that we were planning. Rainy days always eventually come. And so in good times, both for the country and both at the individual level, you have to prepare for that rainy day when it comes. We saved well, and we were able to go back to those funds. When countries everywhere were forced into borrowing, when countries were cutting back on their civil service and their government employees, we maintained everyone on our payroll. Over 4,000 person and the establishment persons, over 1.5 on the government auxiliary payroll, and of course the step workers, another 3,000. This government showed to every employer that you have to show some degree of caring. And although the revenues were not coming in, we paid everyone on time. And I want to thank all those civil servants, the Human Resource Department, the Accountant General, who even in the periods of shutdown came to work and delivered with regularity the requirements, obligations of the government to its employees. Specifically with respect to the limited time offer of the Sustainable Growth Fund, that of course was impacted, as was every other sector, by the COVID-19. The traditional ways in which we would have promoted the program would have been by visits to some of the key markets. For example, Dubai. For example, Hong Kong. And other areas. We would have gone and visited, meet with the international marketing agents, meet with prospective investors, and sell our program to them. COVID-19 meant none of that could have been effectively executed. And so we resorted to the technology, participated in regular webinars to promote the program. And of course, there was a period of time where there was a disinterest because there was too much uncertainty in the marketplace. People were then wary
of whether they should make a move. And realistically, they could not move as a consequence of COVID. So you had that period of slowdown. What I would say is that in the latter part of the year, the program began to pick up steam, and we are satisfied with the result of the program. So satisfied we were that in the budget of last year, we did indicate that we would extend the limited time offer this year. Because, as again, for a substantial period, because of the COVID-19, we were not able to properly promote the project. There was too much noise, in a manner of speaking, in the marketplace. There were other things more pressing on the minds of the prospective investor for them to engage properly. We are satisfied, though, that that was a good intervention and it did save the day. In terms of the contribution to the COVAX facility, on the 15th of October in the Parliament, no less a place, I gave a detailed breakdown of the contribution of St. Kitts and Nevis to the COVAX facility. How much money we had paid, I can't bring the exact figure right now, plus how much was paid on our behalf by PAHO. Substantial figures were paid, 6-digit, to ensure that we had a first call, well, I shouldn't say a first call, an equitable opportunity to participate in the vaccine. The COVAX facility, for the record, comprises of contributors, big countries, small countries within the CARICOM region. And what it is really is a global alliance intended to support the production and bringing to market of vaccines. Our contribution then was intended to do that, to support the global effort, the global alliance that was to bring safe vaccines to the market to be made available to us. As a consequence of our contribution, rather as a result of our contribution, we were promised, or the commitment made was that we would receive 21,600 doses of vaccines. So the payment was not just for vaccine, it was part of a global effort to bring to the market vaccines. So it's not that you can say, well, I gave some countries $500 million. I think the UK gave 548 million pounds. It's not that you go back to it and you say, I want 548 million pounds worth of vaccines. No. You have contributed to a global effort in the spirit of solidarity, in the spirit of shared responsibility, and as a consequence, the Global Alliance would have committed to you that you would get a certain quantum of vaccines should the results prove successful. And in this regard, the results have been very successful in that we have a number of vaccines which are available. You made the important point, Mr. Bart, that the facility would not provide the sum total of our requirements for herd immunity. That is, satisfy 70%, and that is true. Where will we get the results? We are still canvassing the facility. Up to this morning, on behalf of the CARICOM member states, my job as lead spokesman in health was to do that on behalf of the region, to put forward the case that we need to get more, that even the indicative quantities that have been pledged for us as a region will not get us there. Bilateral and multilateral efforts are at place. And that is why outside of that COVAX facility, we got, 22,000 doses. Those had nothing to do, those have nothing to do with the 21,600 doses, which we are still to get to the COVAX facility. We are advised that that will come in 3 tranches in the not too distant future, and we hope it will be sooner rather than later. The commitment was made today at the global meeting with respect to the facilitation of COVID-19 tools, of which vaccines are one of the 4 tools that are required to defeat COVID-19. So our bilateral diplomacy continues, and through that, we expect to get additional quantities of vaccine to take us there. We did say too, because we have been perhaps most transparent in relation to this. We did say that the government of Taiwan had committed, I think it was, Madam Minister, help me, $600,000 US, which we will apply to the procurement of vaccines. But vaccines right now still remain scarce. That scarcity and the reasons for it devoted most of our time this morning in terms of addressing it, confronting it, and making proposals for remedying it. I am not at liberty to disclose right now all the initiatives that have been taken to bring additional vaccines to us. But up to yesterday, we were engaging diplomatically with allies and other countries to secure more vaccine. Indeed, on Friday, when we met at the OECS heads level, and we had the privilege of meeting with Dr. Tejas of the WHO, one of the specific asks that we made of him was for him to make certain outreach on behalf of the entire Caribbean, the OECS and the rest of CARICOM, to procure additional vaccines. We had certain information as to some specific areas from which they could be procured, and we invited him to pursue them. In my opening remarks, I said that he had responded to say that he had made those overtures and remained cautiously optimistic. So I am not too concerned about the future as I am about the present. And the present is that we have access to 20,000 doses of vaccines. We need 20,000 people in St. Kitts and Nevis to step forward. And the sooner you do that, it will be for your own advantage. Because we do not know. As I said, the supply chain has been unreliable. We do not know when other vaccines will come, except that we have commitments. But we realize what happened in Europe. Europe went into a period of abnormality because the promised delivery of vaccines was not being materialized in the timelines they had pledged and they were expecting. So again, a word to the wise is enough. Vaccines are here now. We have about 20,000+ doses available. It is for you to come forward to protect yourself. Do not hesitate. The time is now. In terms of the financial status of SCASPA, the Minister Richards, would prefer to answer that. No, in the absence of, we can't have the director answer that. So the Minister of SCASPA is not yet here. Hopefully he will come in time to be able to respond to that matter, or else I will have to give an input. I gather Don James is here. All right, but let's leave that until the minister comes. We would invite the CMO to deal with those questions. I think the question asked by Mr. Brown related to the opening up. in the context of persons being vaccinated, how soon, and then we will have Raquel Brown from our tourism authority to speak about the outreach, the interaction with the cruise ship industry. Is she doing enough work to position the country when the cruise ships are ready? And we have had news that they have indicated that several of them are ready. So, Raquel, that one goes to you. Would our Chief Medical Officer come forward, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. The question is about, well, let me recap. You asked when would nationals be able to return to the Federation without having to quarantine? That's a very good question. Now, our borders were reopened on October the 31st, and we have been utilizing or using our present health and travel protocols between then and now, and they have served us very well. And I say that because to date we have not gone into community transmission. We have not had any clusters of cases. So far we've only had imported cases, and it is advised that we maintain our present health and travel protocols until we would have vaccinated a significant proportion of our population. More specifically, until we would have reached that herd immunity threshold of 70%. And let me explain. Now, recently, one of our inbound passengers would have come into country and fully vaccinated, he was vaccinated by the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. He got his vaccine in January of this year, came into Federation in March, went into quarantine, and then on day 14 was tested and was found to be positive. So even though he was fully vaccinated, he tested positive. So the vaccine reduces your risk of picking up the virus, but you can still pick up the virus. So he did. Now, if he wasn't in quarantine, there would have been the risk of his spreading the virus to locals. And so we have to maintain our present health and travel protocols until we would have vaccinated a significant proportion of our population. And in our case, it would be our adult population, or 70% of our population. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. In relation to whether or not St. Kitts has been having discussions with the cruise lines, yes, we've been having discussions with cruise lines from as far back as last year, March 13th, when the last vessel, Princess, arrived here. It's been a very tumultuous road for cruise, as we all know. And most recently, you would have seen that Adventure of the Seas will be home porting from Bahamas. Vision of the Seas will be home porting from Barbados, and Celebrity will be home porting, Millennium will be home porting from St. Martin. And so there are questions about which destinations they'll be going to. For the Bahamas Adventure of the Seas, it will be based just on Coco Key, that is Royal Caribbean's private island. Vision of the Seas, they will be doing St. Vincent, Tobago, and the ABCs, Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And Celebrity Millennium will be doing St. Martin, St. Lucia, Barbados, and Tortola, so they'll interchange. They're not longer than 7-day cruises. Adventures of the Seas, I believe, is a 5-day cruise. The protocols that they have put in place are that persons have to do the RT-PCR test 72 hours prior to arrival. everyone has to be vaccinated on the vessels, meaning if you're above 18 years old and you have to have your documentation to confirm that you've done all of your vaccination. The cruise lines have RT-PCR testing on board. Some of them have indicated that they will have both antigen and RT-PCR testing on board, and they will be doing random testing on some of their vessels. It just depends on which one it is. In relation to the date when crews will return to St. Kitts, that is still a process for us, unfortunately, because as Dr. Laws just says, the protocols that we have in place speak to ensuring that we don't have community spread. The vaccine does prevent us from having persons that if they do catch the virus, it reduces the symptoms or the effects. However, what is the plan is they are very much aware from as early as February when we started our first vaccination, and they're updated very regularly as it relates to where we need to reach in terms of the numbers. We have indicated, and we say it within the tourism industry, for tourism really to have an opportunity, we need all of our stakeholders to be vaccinated. You cannot interact with a passenger that is vaccinated or with crew that is vaccinated and we are not vaccinated. So at this point, as the Prime Minister said, we have some doses that we do need to use up, and I'm going to encourage those persons who do work in the cruise industry and they have seen the impact of not having crews in the economy and to their daily pockets to please take their vaccine. I hope I've answered all your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brown and Dr. Laws. Is there any further requests?
Good day, Jason Davis, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. A couple of questions. This one's a bit of a math question. The Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine requires 2 doses, and the latest stats have shown that 7,700 approximately have been given so far, but that's just the first dose, and that's over the course of about a month. Will we run out of doses before it's time for some of those persons to get their second dose? Secondly, MSR Media, as mentioned, is in St. Kitts. Will the government or someone be reaching out to other film companies to try and market St. Kitts as a filming location, bring in more money? Also, could we get an update on Bastair High? Haven't heard much about the plans for that.
Could you repeat the second question?
MSR Media is here. Any plans to reach out to other film studios to market St. Kitts as a filming location?
Okay. I will call upon, let me see if anyone else, do we have another media wishing? For now, we will have the CMO, and we also have Dr. Wilkinson, our medical chief of staff, and they can deal with the issue of the vaccines. Would we be able to give the second dose? Is there a threat or challenge that it may run out? Raquel Brown should be able to answer with respect to the MSR productions and the marketing of the country, and I'll have a word in that. And then we had the question in the Bastair High School. So those are the 3 from Jason. Yes.
Kevin Brown back again. I have a question concerning the East Bus Association. There was a meeting between the association and cabinet. I was just wondering what's the status of that situation?
Association?
East Bus Association, yes. And secondly, I've heard from Ms. Brown, Dr. Laws, and you, Dr. Harris, concerning encouraging people to take the vaccine. What else is being actively done to get people, naysayers, anti-vaxxers, to taking the vaccine? And do we have a specific date on when the next batch will arrive? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we can go in that order. We have the CMO and we have Dr. Wilkinson. Perhaps both of you, we have at least two questions, one with respect to the doses, one about how we are going to get more persons. So perhaps Dr. Wilkinson, you can come and take the second part. Welcome. And then after the medical fraternity, so to speak, we will have Ms. Brown on the promotion efforts.
Okay, with regards to the question if we're going to run out of doses, so at present we have 20,000 doses in hand. We've administered over 7,000 doses already. And so in other words, with this first batch that we would have received, we are targeting 10,000 individuals. And in so doing, we are ensuring that the 10,000 persons would be able to get their second dose. And then the COVAX facility, we would have received a letter recently that in terms of our allotment of 21,600, we are going to receive it in 3 tranches, so 7,200 within another week or two. And then in April and in May, we are going to receive 7,200 until we would have received the 21,600. And so with each batch, we will be targeting the exact number of individuals, and we would make sure that their second dose is available. So no, we won't run out of doses. Thank you.
Well, it is well known that the Ministry of Health and the government, we have been on an education drive to make sure that persons understand the importance of the vaccine and getting vaccinated. We have said, however, that this is an all of government, meaning that not just the Ministry of Health is responsible, but every single ministry in government, and an all of society approach. And so when you ask what else are we doing, the question I want to ask is what else is society going to do, because this is something that's going to affect all of us. And so we have been asking for the engagement of our NGOs, academia, civil society, communities, families. Everyone has to take a part. And so sometimes I listen to talk shows and I hear people complaining about what are we going to do, but the question is, what are you going to do? And I keep saying that every single person has a mic. The other day I spoke about a case where there is a gentleman who I kept trying to encourage him to take the vaccine, and he kept saying no. And then he called me and told me, I got vaccinated, you know. So I said, I finally got through to you? He said, no, I saw the Mansion Bull took it. And if the Mansion Bull took it, I can take it. And so everyone has a platform. And so we ask everyone to get engaged and ask everybody to roll up their sleeves and get vaccinated.
Thank you very much. I would invite the Minister of Health, Mrs. Akila Byron Nisbet, to give her views on this matter.
Additionally, just wanted to add as well that in terms of the Ministry of Health, we are going on a community campaign, and so you're going to see more of our nurses out in the community attempting to be able to get enough persons within their own districts to be able to be vaccinated. Apart from that, we are going out to you, so we're not waiting for persons to come to us within the health centers. Instead, we're going where you are, so at your jobs, within your communities, at your various community centers, and also within your various communities. We're going to come to you. Our nurses are equipped and ready to come out on the road and to be able to inoculate. As a matter of fact, we have had a number of our retired nurses who have come back to the public service in order to be able to assist us with this. And so even if when we speak about the hotels and taxi associations and the industrial site, we're taking the vaccination to you in our efforts to be able to ensure that persons are encouraged to take the vaccine. So we're hoping with that, as well as Dr. Wilkinson said, the all of society approach. So each one teach one. So you get the information, you've been vaccinated, and we're hoping that you now in turn will educate someone else and encourage them to be able to take the vaccine vaccine as well. And remembering, I keep saying, 1 vial is 10 doses. So you encourage 9 persons to go with you. At least, 1 vial, just you and your friends or family have been able to be inoculated with that 1 vial. You could probably even ask the nurse if you can have it as a token that my group of friends and I, all 10 of us, were able to be inoculated with this 1 vial. So it's just an idea that persons can use in order to be able to make sure that everyone is vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on the all of society approach, I want to commend several churches which have reached out to the Ministry of Health, have had the health experts come to their members and to explain why they should take vaccines. I want to commend Dr. Natalie Osborne because she has led a session at Dr. Benz Brown's church. I happened to have been there on the Sunday to have learned that she had volunteered to come to speak to the church. I know that she is very active, encouraging persons in the Kayan community and persons generally with whom she gets in touch. She was one of the about 20 plus persons from the medical fraternity who came forward on the first day to show the confidence in the science and the confidence in the advice we had with respect to the vaccine. Equally, I want to commend Dr. Bernice Nisbet, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, in her capacity as the District Medical Officer for most of the St. Paul's, St. John's and St. Paul's area for her work in that regard. I know she has led education awareness program in Newton Ground, and I know up to yesterday she was at, I think, another church doing a similar exercise in Sadlers. So I just want to extend word of commendation. This is what each of us is obliged to do if we are to get there, because we are doing this not just for ourselves, but for an entire country. You heard Dr. Laws say that we need to at least get as close as we can to herd immunity for us to have any drastic relaxations in the protocols. All of us would want to walk again with our masks, but it will not be safe unless many of us are vaccinated. All of us would want to go back to see the games and to have loud music and to prance around and enjoy. Not going to be possible unless most of us get vaccinated. So you're doing it not just for you and your loved ones, but for your country. And so I just wanted to commend those who have been active, encouraging others. Those who haven't taken the vaccines would have posted on lines for their friends to see that they have gone, because sometimes in the group you only need a first mover. So I want to commend those who are doing it. I want to commend my own group almost on a daily basis. We go through constituency number 7 with our bullhorns, and we urge persons, remind them that that day is vaccination day and that they ought to go to get their shot. So anything that you can do to follow up on Dr. Wilkerson's advice, you should be doing. Don't just do it and it's okay. We also want to encourage in particular heads of government department to take this serious. Every government employee who is willing to go ought to be urged to go and given appropriate time to go get their vaccines. Just as we would give them reasonable time if they were going to vote, or if it was a hurricane coming, we give them reasonable time to go and get the vaccine. What is important, in order to make it easy for all, we have added the Saturday morning from 9 to noon so that anyone can get vaccinated using the health centers in Bastille and, importantly, in the rural areas also, Tabernacle and St. Paul's going forward. The Ministry of Health is determined that it will go to the workers and several entities, the Development Bank, Marriott, Royal St. Kitts Hotel, Koi Hotel, among others, Ross University, have all availed themselves of the opportunity to have the health personnel come in and then to have the vaccination done on site. So I'm encouraging those of us that are behind to basically take that opportunity, get the health personnel into your department and arrange for the vaccination program. This is an important national priority, and all of us have to get on board with respect to that. With those words, I want to invite Ms. Brown to come to address the question of the development, really, of the film industry, having regard to the fact that we would have had 7 films at the end of the year being done in St. Kitts and Nevis, which would be a record. Sunday, the MSR production team was on St. Kitts, and that's where they had come to basically begin the shooting or the filming of their films. They're going to spend some of the week on St. Kitts, some of the time in Nevis, as a look for the best sites, again, to do their film production, filming activity. There's a lot of opportunity now emerging for persons in St. Kitts to learn about that industry without having to go abroad. And so we hope that those opportunities are being exploited. It provides an opportunity too, the minister reminded me, for the Ministry of Talent Development to become involved with persons directly involved in the industry, to share that experience with those who have that of one of their career goals. Raquel Brown.
Thank you, Prime Minister. As it relates to MSR and below deck, let me just start with below deck because it's happening here on St. Kitts. For those of you who don't know, or you should know by now, below deck is a reality TV show that's based on the yachting industry, and it's showed on Bravo. And Bravo is one of those very high-rated TV channels that a lot of persons that do come to St. Kitts and Nevis for a stay over, or they do come for yachting, or they do come on vessels, for example, such as Crystal Cruises, Seabourn, or Celebrity, for example, part of the Royal Caribbean group. They watch those shows. And so it speaks to specifically the yachting environment or industry. And St. Kitts was specifically chosen this season. So at this point in time, though, we can't tell you when it will be aired because it is still under low key as much as possible. But they will be promoting the destination a lot. They will be showing different locations as it speaks to St. Kitts and Nevis, a lot of our historical sites or cultural sites, what is unique and authentic to the destination. So it is not just specifically a reality TV show, but they're showcasing the destination. MSR, which is right now filming 1 year off in Nevis, they have a few shoots from Salt Plage and from other locations. And the producer has indicated that there has been interest in St. Kitts as to why they're here. You may have heard the Prime Minister say on Sunday, I believe it was, that there are other destinations who actually pay because they have a film industry or they have a film authority that takes care of this, or they provide incentives for them to actually come and shoot in the destination. And so, for example, for Puerto Rico, they would have been paying them like $40,000 US. They came to St. Kitts and Nevis for free solely on the fact that it was the management of COVID-19 and what they needed to do in order of operating to produce the show. We met the criteria. A lot of persons he has indicated, or other producers in the industry, have asked, why did you choose St. Kitts? And he said, it's safe. What are they paying you? They're not paying him anything. But they're intrigued. And if you don't know who MSR is, for those of you who watch shows at the beginning and you see Lionsgate, you'll see it at the beginning, a lot of Tyler Perry shows. That's who it is. But MSR is behind the scenes. And they do a lot of work for Netflix and for Prime Video that I know probably 80% of persons in the room. As it speaks to marketing and PR, We are not yet at that full stage yet, but we know we will get inquiries. I know there will be additional journalists that will ask about us specifically for the film industry. But one of the best things about it is that it doesn't just promote St. Kitts just as how we would normally do for tourism or for the Citizenship by Investment program, but it speaks to St. Kitts as a filming industry. And there are many more stars to come. We met some of them on Saturday, but there are many stars to come. Some I cannot speak to at this point in time, but you do know that we'll be a part of the 6 shows. So for us, it's a great opportunity, and the better and better it goes, not just only for our young people or for persons in St. Kitts and Nevis that are getting jobs, but it also speaks to the promotion of the destination. So I hope I answered that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask the Minister for Talent Development to indicate whether there have been any opportunity for her ministry to engage MSR to see where they can bring some value as we are about to set up more fully that ministry. Madam Minister.
Thank you, PM. Yes, just to add that within the new Ministry of Entertainment and Talent Development, we have been engaging those producers that are here to see how they can assist us with developing our own film industry here in St. Kitts and Nevis. With the help of the Tourism Authority, we have made those connections with the producers of both MSR as well as Below Deck to see how we can not only use it as a aid for tourism, but also how that in turn would be able to help us to develop this new industry that we are intending to build out here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And the feedback so far have been very good, and we're looking forward to our further discussions with them as we try to develop that industry here in St. Kitts and Nevis through this new ministry as well.
Thank you very much. I will invite the Deputy Prime Minister to address the matter of the East Bus Station agreement posed by Mr. Brown.
Good afternoon to everyone. Before I attempt to answer the question relative to the East Bastia bus terminal, let me first go back to the question which was asked about SCASPA and the financial health of that entity at this point in time. I don't have the specific figures before me in respect of the financial operations of SCASPA. However, one would expect that because of the effects of COVID-19, that financially that institution is severely affected. SCASPA generates its fees from a number of different services that it provides to persons. For example, when you have cruise ships berthed at any one of the cruise ship piers, of course, there are fees which are charged in respect of that. We do know that as of March last year, and the Minister of Tourism has arrived, but we do know as of March last year that no berthing fees are being collected in respect of cruise ships because we don't have any cruise ships. Similarly, you have the situation at the airport whereby the number of flights have been severely impacted for a period of time. We would have had little or no flights in terms of the landing fees. Those again severely affected. The fees that SCASPA charges individuals for parking at the airport again is severely down because of the fact that vehicles are more or less not allowed to use a parking lot. It's basically just a pick-up and drop-off situation at the airport at this point in time. The rent that SCASPA normally would get from persons renting different spaces at the airport, I would think that that is also severely hampered as a result of COVID-19. Therefore, one can expect that SCASPA is basically operating at a loss at this point in time. There are still employees to be paid. The operations, yes, in terms of the seaport and cargo ships, that is still ongoing, but I don't think it would be sufficient to support the expenses of SCASPA. SCASPA would have built the second cruise pier recently. I don't know if in terms of the repayments of the loans for that particular second cruise ship pier, if those have started, but indeed if those have started, it also means that you have some expenses which you are now incurring that, of course, when you budgeted for it, you would have expected that things to be different, but COVID has changed a number of things relative to the operations of SCASPA. The minister is here, and so if he wishes to add anything else, of course, one would expect him to come forward and do so. He perhaps would have more specific information in terms of the finances at this point in time as to where they were approximately 1 year ago and where they are today. He's laughing. And again, if you take into consideration that because of COVID, the airport had to be retrofitted, again, you had expenses by SCASPA in respect of that. And as we would say locally, the dance isn't paying for the lights at this point in time. Now to the question of the East Bastia bus terminal. As persons are aware, during the course of last week, Monday morning, a number of bus drivers who ply that particular route would have staged a protest in Bastia. That protest began at the terminal itself, and eventually they would have gone to government headquarters. Being a government that is concerned about the operations and anything that is going to affect the public here in St. Kitts and Nevis, the cabinet was sitting at the time and a decision was taken to have a conversation with the bus drivers and the members of cabinet. They came to cabinet and they would have discussed a number of different concerns that they have. Amongst the concerns, for example, they indicated that you have some bus drivers who are not using the terminal, but instead picking up and dropping off persons along the route going to the West Bastia bus terminal or within other places in Bastia. Of course, they said that that is affecting their ability to make a living. While others are doing it, they are not doing it. They, to some extent, he said that the police have not been doing a good job in terms of policing what they refer to as the rogue bus drivers. They felt that more tickets should be given to those particular individuals to discourage them from breaking the law, because indeed there is a prescribed bus route. There were other concerns in regards to the current legislation which speaks to the bus association, the membership of the bus association, because as it is, you have more than 2-3 different bus associations, and I gather that the legislation also speaks to Nevis. While the legislation speaks to a specific number of persons who can be on the board, of course the bus members are saying that they want representation from just about all of the different buses which do have an association. There are ways in which perhaps that can be addressed, whether it is that the buses would have an umbrella association, etc., but the legislation itself also needs to be looked at. Additionally, they express concern in regards to the current design of the bus station. If you got to the bus station, you would recognize that in order for them to maneuver, you have like some curbs and the buses have to drive in between to pick up persons. So they basically queue up in that particular manner. Some of the larger buses are having difficulties maneuvering around the corner areas at the bus station. In December of last year, Public Works had already entered into a contract agreement with a contractor, the very same contractor who had done the work there, to make the necessary designs in terms of the space to correct it so that they're able to maneuver better. However, because of some particular concerns, the work hadn't begun. What I can say to you is that work began in earnest yesterday. The bus drivers have been relocated back to Branch Street. They would be there temporarily until those particular corrections are being made. One of the other concerns they also had about the design is that when it rains, apparently persons aren't afforded enough shelter, so some persons get wet. And then if you are in the queue and you have an emergency, let's say something has gone wrong at home and you need to leave, all of the buses which are in front of you would have to come out of the queue in order for you to be able to exit. So those are some of the concerns which they express, and those concerns are being looked at by the government. As I said, the work at the terminal itself has begun. There was a meeting on Friday of last week with the PS for Transport, Mrs. Carleen Henry Morton, along with members of the association, and I think you're the representative of the police, to discuss some of those other concerns. Minister Grant himself had a meeting yesterday morning with some of the bus drivers who have been accused of not following the bus route, so as to bring some level of satisfaction to that particular concern and to ensure that all of the buses more or less operating on an equal play field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it appears several persons are listening. I've just had a WhatsApp which indicated that at the breweries last Friday, 29 members from the employee pool were vaccinated. So you get your session and you present an opportunity for persons, and we are encouraging more persons, more entities to do that. A long list, I've named some of them, have explored that opportunity. I know National Bank is on the list. I believe for next week they're having a further information session and vaccination program that is taking place. As we speak at the Social Security Board, Dr. Archibald is there speaking to the staff at the Social Security. I at least have seen one photo on Facebook of Mr. Antonio Maynard. He's the director, so he's leading by example. I want to commend him for his leadership in that regard. I should also mention that tomorrow, is it tomorrow? At the Keon Community Center, there is a vaccination information session at 5:30 p.m. put on by the Ministry of Health. And we want to encourage all persons living in, working in, or in any way interested in learning more about the vaccination program to go to the Keon Community Center tomorrow at 5 p.m. I hope that your questions will be so well answered that you would get yourself vaccinated. I want to commend the efforts last night in Old Road for another vaccination session at, where was that, Minister? Old Road Community Center. And as a result of that, we had, was it 19, I think it was? 17, so you needed to get 2 more. Okay. Who got themselves vaccinated. So the numbers keep moving. Everyone matters. So we want each one to take someone along to do so. And let me also, in extending commendation, include and extend them too to Dr. Archibald. He's at the Social Security Board just now doing his session. Last night he was in Old Road. We commend him. And Dr. Sebastian also has been active. All of you, some known, some unknown, whatever you are doing to get this effort going, to make St. Kitts, for sure, enduringly the safest destination, we want to say thank you. And as we basically about to bring to an end, although I see a hand up for another question, I don't know, Minister, if you wanted to add anything more on Casper, or the Deputy may have covered. You don't know what the question was. Okay. So the Deputy answered. I just want to recognize also and to note that many years back, as we are talking about movies, I'm advised in 1985, Chuck Norris filmed Missing in Action 2, The Beginnings, in St. Kitts and Mexico. So we have a rich history. And most of the scenes, I'm advised, were done at Jacta. At that time, Ambassador Michael Powell was then Minister of Tourism and certainly had led the way in this particular area of movie production. So commendation to you that you're alive to see a second coming. So we commend your work in that, and also I remember when you did the Kitishan Village over at Frigate Bay as part of creating additional interest in the tourism product. So we had some good initiatives in the past, which we now have to build upon with new information, new technologies, and make them, of course, more attractive to those who want to come. So I would now allow Mr. Bart. Is there anybody else? Because if there is none, we would want to wrap up. Any other media house? Oh, sorry, we have the question on the Bastille High School. I will allow Minister Powell to speak to that, and then, Mr. Bart, we will take your questions. And I want to thank those persons who are tuning in and sending me some updated information so that we can complete the record of activities in St. Kitts and Nevis, and to commend those who in many ways set the pathway on which we are now treading perhaps more safely on.
Good afternoon all. I am happy to report that the ball is rolling in relation to the new Bastille High School. We have made the initial mobilization payment already, and we are now in the process of finalizing the employer's liability insurance that is required to begin the hoarding process and to erect fencing and signage at the site. At the same time, the Department of Public Works is preparing to start the bidding process or the tendering process so that we can receive bids from our local contractors to begin the major work. So the Bastille High School is underway, so to speak. It would be remiss of me if I did not use this platform to echo the encouragement to all to get vaccinated. I don't think we can say it enough. This week, I'm advised that the teachers throughout St. Kitts at least, and I believe Nevis is following suit, will be addressed by the various groups by the Ministry of Health, and we will start the process of getting teachers vaccinated, those who have not been vaccinated already. I can also report that up to last week, Thursday, Dr. Laws, the CMO, would have met with the Carnival Committee and Carnival stakeholders, again in an effort to encourage members of stakeholders of Carnival to go out and get vaccinated. The reality is, we keep getting the questions about when do we open up, when are we going to have Carnival. Those discussions can't start until the persons themselves that are involved have been vaccinated and are fully protected so as to be able to participate in these activities. So again, go out and get vaccinated.
Thanks. Just for completeness, again availing of the technology, the Development Bank staff in St. Kitts had a COVID-19 vaccination information session on clinic on Thursday last week. This was conducted by Dr. Matthias Afutu Ufre. He's part of the Health Promotion Unit, one of our doctors who had been, citizen of Nigeria, now lovingly married to a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. I am advised that the Nevis staff will have similar information session this Thursday, and this will be conducted by Dr. Judy Nisbet. So clearly there are significant activities taking place, and persons can, if they are interested, have enough information from people who they know, people in whom they can have confidence to make the right decision. I want to thank Commander Lieutenant Colonel for his work in mobilizing the Defense Force officers to the vaccination. Have you reached 70% yet, sir? You're getting there. Hope soon, by next week, I will backtrack. And Mr. Brandy, the Commissioner of Police. Mr. Brandy, have you reached 70% yet? Well, he's working on it. Indeed, when we started the Saturday session, it was to deal with the peculiarity of the life of the police officers who were 24/7 on call, and to provide a special opportunity where they could go and be fast-tracked. We have since extended that to anyone wanting to be vaccinated on Saturday, for them to be able to do so. So the government is doing all in its power, reasonably to do so. On the STEP program, they have advised their workers that on Thursday they can go and be vaccinated, and they will not be required to work on Friday. That is, of course, is to deal with any issues they may have within the immediate period after the vaccination. So again, Mr. Brown, in terms of incentives, in terms of information, there is no dearth of that. And we hope that WIN can come up with some also interesting program. Maybe get some of those who have been vaccinated to compare notes. That may be an interesting topic of discussion. Certainly ZIZ can do that too. We will now hear from Glenn Bard and any other media rep who has an interest.
Right. Thank you very much. Just a follow-up. With regards to the Freedom of Information legislation, could an update be provided regarding its operationalization? Because I remember the last that we have heard about it was that certain things needed to be put in place before it becomes effective. Secondly, we are hearing that an X-ray machine at the JNF General Hospital is no longer functioning. If this is the case, could one indicate what options are available to the medical staff? Good, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will have the Attorney General answer with respect to the Freedom of Information Act, and we will have Dr. Wilkinson address the issue of the X-ray machine at JNF.
Good afternoon, all. Thank you, Glenn, for that question. One would recall that the Freedom of Information Act is part of the Team Unity's government's good governance agenda, and which we have worked very hard to make operational for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. This afternoon's function, for instance, is a case in point. We have been subject to regular information given press conferences such as this, and the attendance here and the interest that the public has had shows how important that is. The whole concept of information is one of openness, and I want to read very briefly what the Act itself would say as the objects of the Freedom of Information legislation. And in clause 4 of the Act, it says that every person shall have the right to freedom of information, including the right to access information held by public bodies subject to the provisions of this Act. And of course, the provisions indicate that some information held by public bodies would be privileged. They are subject to questions of national security, questions of privacy, and such forth. What I would say, Glenn, is that we have employed over time a number of people who are involved in information. So, for instance, in the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, there is an information officer, and their information officers are being employed across the public service. Their duty would be to ensure that records are kept and in such a way that requests for information can be responded to. Not only do we have information officers, but some ministries also go as far as to have communications officers who also assist in disseminating information on the public bodies. This is a concept of openness that the government has, that the public should know what pertains in government, But when it comes to freedom of information, not just in terms of the information given to you, but in terms of documents that can be applied for. I just want to end by suggesting that one of the measures that our information officers have been doing have been beginning to prepare booklets for dissemination. Those have to be cleared by cabinet to give information on how you go about dealing with these matters. Regulations have to be put in place. But in the interim, you would know that there are a number of sites, websites that you can visit to get information on the government. For instance, there is the www.gov.kn that gives you an overview of all ministries and the structure of the government. And individual ministries, more and more, are coming online with their own individual information, then the structure, what happens, what the information that pertains in each individual ministry. I can speak to, for instance, again, at the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Attorney General's Chambers, www.legal.gov.kn, and there you go, you get the structure of all the departments of the ministry, who are the officers, what are the structures, what information is held, and you are in a position to be able to access information on a regular basis. For instance, one of the very interesting pieces of information you get regularly at that website would be monthly reports from the supervisor of elections, who would report regularly the duties that they're doing. You can access the voters' registers, the publications who are registering to vote. Those who object, this is information that is on that website. You can also get access to questions of the court lists. What are the cases being heard at magistrates' courts, the different magistrates' courts, and the High Court? These are published weekly. So there is more and more information that's open to the public that is now currently in place, and more will be added. I can also speak, for instance, all the laws of St. Kitts and Nevis. These were uploaded since last year, February, and as more laws are done, all of them are now online. Any citizen anywhere in the world, anyone, can get access to the laws of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Constitution, and the various means by which we operate as a country here. It is part of our good governance agenda, and we keep working at it for the benefit of all. Thank you very much.
Dr. Wilkinson, again, just applying the technology. Ms. Lornette Claxton from Nevis, WhatsApp for me to know that she has already been vaccinated. So proud of you, Lornette. And we had another WhatsApp from Nevis, so we are certainly getting good coverage. And the question, when will NASPA be vaccinated? I am certain in due course that they will move as a group to have NASPA vaccinated. Thank you from Nevis for sending through your questions and comments.
Yes, as it relates to the X-ray machine at the Joseph and France General Hospital, there are two parts to the machine that are malfunctioned, and we had to order these parts. One of them is actually on island right now and will be installed within the next 24 to 48 hours. The other part should arrive here sometime next week, Thursday or before. We, however, have a couple new digital portable X-ray machines, and the technicians are currently undergoing training with the supplier online, and that should come into service within the next day or two. We have, however, had no gap in the service delivered because we have been using the services of the two radiologists, one who is employed by the government and the other who has privileges at the hospital. I speak of Dr. Hodge and Dr. Clark. And so the persons in hospital who require x-rays, they have been transported via the ambulance to these persons' offices, and they're close by. Dr. Hodge is in the Science Complex, and Dr. Clark's office is just below us at the William Connor Church. So yes, it has been a little inconvenience not having the x-ray at the hospital, but the matter is being addressed, and hopefully within another week or so, everything will be rectified. With any digital machines, there are always going to be little hiccups in terms of parts that may go bad, but we always make sure that we have continuity of service, which is the most important thing.
Thank you very much, our Chief of Medical Staff, and it's good to know that things are happening in a very smooth way, at least one of the parties back in. We want to commend those in the leadership at the JNF Hospital for the very good work. And what is also interesting is that side by side, the public supply of health services, we are having a growing private sector involvement, and I'm happy to know that two of our locals have been able to fill the gap in terms of the provision of services. This is part healthcare would be an emerging area for economic activity in years to come, and we certainly want to welcome locals to participate in the provision, particularly of sophisticated healthcare services right here in St. Kitts. It would add value to our ability to promote our destination for health tourism. It will add to the expectations we have with respect to the new facility participating over at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel, which again is intending in the long run to provide health care to the rich and famous and those who can pay locally, of course, over at that facility. It is for now situated on the compounds of the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. Eventually, all things go well, would be located over at the peninsula. So these are all good efforts that we would want to commend and to have more of those. I think this brings the end. We have one more request for the floor.
Just a quick question. We've seen great headway in the construction of the traffic lights phase 2. Question is, when would they be turned on?
I'll ask the Minister to address that.
The quick and short answer is that no date has been determined as to when the traffic lights would be turned on. Just yesterday, we would have had a contingent from the Public Works Ministry. You had the Director of Public Works, Mr. Cromwell Williams, the Chief Engineer, Mr. George Gilbert, and Mr. Livingston Pemberton, Annex Engineer from the department, who would have come to Cabinet to provide a briefing relative to the traffic lights. There are several concerns that we would want to ensure that they are addressed before the traffic lights are commissioned. You would recognize that when the first phase was completed, you had a number of changes being made to the flow of traffic. That, of course, would affect not only the persons driving, but also pedestrians, etc. We have to ensure that persons are aware that you can no longer cross the road as you would have been accustomed to. In terms of some of the turns that you are able to currently take, you would no longer be able to take those particular turns once the lights are commissioned. For example, those persons coming from the western side of the island, Greenlands, for example, who are accustomed to turning down into Church Street, whether it is to go and renew a passport form, to attend a meeting of Parliament, and there's one scheduled this coming Thursday, to transact business wherever on 4th Street, or perhaps to Church Street, or perhaps to use Church Street to enter, be it Liverpool Road, the Bay Road, etc., of course, that no longer will be available in terms of making that right turn into Church Street. We have to ensure that the public is fully aware of those changes. We have other concerns relative to the Bay Road area, the number of business places which would be affected, and not just on the Bay Road but elsewhere. And so in terms of ensuring that all of the necessary conversations have taken place and those business owners are fully seized as to what are some of the disruptions that they're going to expect and where alternative parking would be available for customers. That information we expect to give to persons. Additionally, it also means that quite a bit of the parking space which is currently available within the Bastille area, and already as it is, you have basically not sufficient parking space. So we also want to ensure that we're able to say to the public that these particular areas have now been designated for parking. Maybe it is that there now becomes an opportunity for some of the taxi drivers affected by the closure of the boating facilities down at the pier, or the decreased number of airplanes coming in, to be able to shuttle persons back and from, whether it is to work or to conduct business in Bastille. So those are currently being addressed. There are some concerns on the Boardwalk Road, the intersection of Boardwalk on the Bay Road. There is a suggestion to be able to widen that road, so depending on the direction you're coming from and the direction you're heading in, you don't necessarily have to await the change in terms, or to even utilize the traffic light to make certain turns. So that also was discussed before the cabinet yesterday. That is being looked at, the cost of it and how to go about in terms of the best way to go about doing that. So there are a number of different considerations taking place that would basically determine when those traffic lights are commissioned. If you take, for example, that those which are placed in the vicinity of the two exits and entrances for Port Zante, one of the major reasons for those particular traffic lights would be the fact that when you have quite a number of cruise ship passengers exiting Port Zante, it is felt that you don't want to have congestion out on the port and to give the tourists not the best of an experience in terms of being out there waiting in a queue for a long period of time. Taking into consideration that we don't have any cruise ships at this point in time, there is a question as to whether or not it is necessary to commission those particular traffic lights at this stage. The experts are supposed to be preparing a report and coming back to cabinet, after which a decision would be made, and I will be able to provide you with additional information with regards to the commissioning of those lights.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. I hope from his answer you glean, among other things, a particular philosophy of a government that listens and a government that is attentive to the concerns being vocalized by the people. And so, as the Deputy said, we had consultations with our chief technical advisors based on some of the feedback we have been having regarding the placement of some of these street lights. Some of them from members of the business community, some of them from the other citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, and we thought there was some merit to some of the concerns, and we called the professional team to provide guidance to the government. Out of that rich discussion, there was a need for further consultation among themselves and further involvement with the stakeholders, which would guide the progress of that. I want in that regard to recognize one of the engineers at Public Works and ask him to come forward, Livingston Pemberton. He is the chief engineer for the purpose of the guidance and the professional guidance with respect to the street lighting program. So it is so good to have local talent on whom we can rely, and he was among those who came forward. I'm trying to make him a star, so when he retires, there would be plenty business coming his way. But I take special pleasure in congratulating him and the rest of the team for the excellent work they have been doing so far. There is another young man from St. Paul's, Bervin Daniel, who is an important asset to the team, and we want them to know that we, again, feel a sense of privilege and pride at their patriotic contribution to our country at this time. Thank you again, Mr. Pemberton. And on that note, equally, I want to recognize Mr. Kennedy De Silva, who has been doing a fantastic job with our task force in terms of the issues of the management, compliance with respect to our efforts to combat COVID-19. So everywhere, if we look carefully and we are thoughtful enough to consider the contribution of each other, we will see our ordinary sons and daughters who are excelling, who are doing a fantastic job for the country, and we need to remind them that we value their contribution. I think this is a good note on which we shall end today's press conference. I want to thank all those who have tuned in on radio and television, and those who would have logged on social media to be apprised of those matters of national interest. I want to commend the representatives of the media for bringing a certain number of questions with them and for putting them to us so that we could have a better understanding of some of the issues which are of concern to the general public. Thank you for being the voice of the people out there and helping us to get a better sense of where there is an information void. With the presence of the senior officials who have come to take the opportunity to account, because this is what this exercise is about, is an accountability framework, an accountability opportunity which provides itself for us at the leadership of the government and at the senior officials of the government to be able to account to the public. So I want to thank all the senior officials of the government who came and added value by their responses to the question. And of course, Willett signals me that he likes when new faces come so he could add to his repertoire the collage of photos that is available for commercial purposes. So again, thank you to my colleagues, starting at the far left, the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Vincent Byron, the Honorable Lindsay Grant, our Minister of Tourism et al., the Honorable John L. Powell, our Minister of Education et al., our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Public Infrastructure et al., the Honorable Sean Richards, the Honorable Wendy Phipps, our Minister of Labour, International Trade, etc., and the Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, our Minister of Health et al. I want, of course, to recognize again the Deputy Speaker of our National Assembly, Dr. Bernicia Nisbet. I want to recognize the excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, our colleague, the Honorable Vance Emery, now Ambassador Extraordinary Plenipotentiary. We want to thank him for coming and sharing this opportunity with us. He is an individual and whose experience and wisdom would have guided me through some of the difficult challenges which have confronted the government I really have publicly, and want to still do so, thank him for being a stabilizing force within the team unity construct, and all that he would have shared, not just to me, with other colleagues who help with our own development. I want to thank Ambassador, His Excellency Michael Powell, the man for the movies. We want to thank him for coming and for his support, and to all of you. And let me also recognize a very special guest, Dr. Sharon Gopal McNichol. She is here. She is no stranger to St. Kitts and Nevis. We thank her for traveling from Trinidad to come to be with us. She is working with our national security. She did some prior work with them before, and she was invited back by the permanent secretary to do a number of sessions with the leadership and with other areas. Additionally, because she is a forensic and clinical psychologist with a lot of experience in the USA, in the region, and matters to do with at-risk group, at-risk societies, she is also going to help us provide some counseling and support to those who are involved in counseling, those who are involved in the leadership of that program. So it's lovely to have you even at this time, and for your love for our country, which has driven you to come even at this time, to make yourself available to our national security organs. Thank you, and may God keep you safe here. In fact, you are the safest place to be, but don't tell your family I said that. We love having you. Thanks again, one and all, and may God continue to bless our people and country. Thank you.